Nityananda, Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Giridhari Bhagwan ki jai. Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maiya ki jai. Sri Sri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gaurango. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Srila Gurudev. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So welcome everybody to today's session. Kadam Kanan Prabhu, you want to maybe start the process of the day?
No, Prabhu, it looks like it's already started. Carry on.
Okay. So yeah, we'll just do a little bit like a formal class, Srimad Bhagavatam class, half an hourish, and then we'll open it up for some discussion and some analysis on terms of some take-home points for all of you. Okay, so if you have your Bhagavatams with you, I don't have a slide today because it's a short class. I thought we'll not go through, but if you can refer. So I'll be discussing from Canto 2, Chapter 4, Text 15. So 2, 4, 15. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So I will read from 2:4:15, the chapter titled The Process of Creation from Canto 2.
So, Prabhuji, can you please repeat?
Canto 2, chapter
4,
text 15, 1-5.
Okay.
It's a very nice verse. Yat kirtanam yad smaranam yadikshanam yadvandanam yachravanam yadarhanam lokasya sadyo vidhunoti kalmasham tasmai subhadra shravase namo namaha. Yad kirtanam yad smaranam yadikshanam yadvandanam yachravanam yadarhanam lokasya sadyo vidhunoti kalmasham tasmai subhadra shravase namo namaha. Would somebody like to try? No? Okay. Or okay, that's fine. I'll just say that one more time before we start our further discussion. Yat kirtanam yad smaranam yadikshanam yadvandanam yachravanam yadarhanam lokasya sadyo vidhunoti kalmasham tasmai subhadra shravase namo namaha. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the all-auspicious Lord Sri Krishna, about whom glorification, remembrances, audience, prayers, hearing, and worship can at once cleanse the effects of all sins of the performer. Purport. It's not a very long purport, but I'll perhaps just read the first paragraph just to keep within the time. The sublime form of religious performances to free oneself from all reactions of sins is suggested herein by the greatest authority, Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Kirtanam, or glorifying the Lord, can be performed in very many ways, such as remembering, visiting temples to see the deity, offering prayers in front of the Lord, and hearing recitations of glorification of the Lord as they are mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam or in the Bhagavad Gita. Kirtanam can be performed both by singing the glories of the Lord in accompaniment with melodious music and by recitation of scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnanam Jana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the verse today, Yad Kirtanam, Yad Smaranam, Yad Ikshanam, Yad Vandanam, Yad Shravanam, Yad Arhanam. So in this particular verse, Sukadeva Goswami is glorifying the Lord. And he's actually giving us a very, very important bit of information. He is telling us how to intimately associate with the Lord. And he's giving us 6 ways, not just one, 6 ways in which we can personally associate with the Lord anytime that we would like to. Isn't it amazing? 6 ways of associating. Sometimes people say that, oh, the Lord is not there. Arjun was so fortunate. He could see Krishna and he could hear Bhagavad Gita from Krishna, but we are not that fortunate. So it is an apt answer or reaction to such arguments or such comments that people make. So he's giving us 6 ways. So what are the 6 ways? We know most of them or all of them. So he says first, Yad Kirtanam. So Kirti, as we know, is glorification. So Yad Kirtanam. By glorifying the Lord, we instantly associate with the Lord. Second, Yad Smaranam. Smaranam is remembrance. So whenever we remember the Lord, we are connected with him. Yad Ikshanam. Ikshanam is audience. Whenever we see, whenever we are there in his presence, whether at home or in the temple. Yad Vandanam. Vandanam is prayer. Whenever we are praying to the Lord. Yad Shravanam. Whenever we are hearing about the Lord. And Yad Arhanam. Arhanam means whenever we are actually worshipping the Lord. Deity worship. So you see, Prabhupada has given us such a wonderful process that we are able to do these 6 things on a daily basis if we follow the process sincerely as given to us by Guru and Srila Prabhupada. So in this specific chapter, the process of creation, as a bit of a background and a context, is that Parikshit Maharaj has been asking these questions to Shukadeva Goswami. And in Canto 1, we've seen right from the history of Bhagavatam, how it starts up from the end of Mahabharat war, and then it moves on to how Krishna saves Parikshit how Parikshit is born, how he becomes a king, he deals with Kali, and towards the end of Canto 1, we saw how he gets cursed by the Brahmin boy, and then how he prepares himself to face that curse and goes out to understand what is the real purpose of life, or what is his real duty in the last 7 days that he has got. And that's when Canto 1 finishes with the appearance of Shukadeva Goswami. And in this canto, it starts off from there again, the conversation between the king and Shukadeva Goswami. And in the last few chapters, there is a description of Parikshit Maharaj, and there's an appreciation of Parikshit Maharaj's questions, and also a little bit about the creation, specifically about Brahma, Satyalok. And in this particular chapter, this is the part where Shukadeva Goswami is actually glorifying the Lord before starting to describe in detail pastimes and the descriptions of the Lord himself. So here he talks about six ways of association. So in the first 2 lines of this verse, it is very nicely said that these are the 6 things we can do to associate with the Lord. And then it says, if we do associate with the Lord, what actually happens? So first is what we could do. The activities are given. Then the next line says, if you do these activities, what is it that you will experience? Because we need to understand, if we are doing something, what is the result? What is the byproduct? Because ultimately, we all know bhakti should be done without motivation. But to get us into the path of bhakti, there is some amount of motivation required until we get the taste for actually doing bhakti without any motive. So that's why in Bhagavatam, you'll see most of the pastimes, they end with a Mahatmyam, which usually talks about the benefit of hearing that particular pastime. It is specifically mentioned at the end of each pastime in every canto. So here, what is the benefit, or what is the Mahatmya? Lokasya sadhyo vidunoti kalmasham. Vidunoti is dhona. It's like dhoti. It's like cleaning. Vidunoti kalmasham. Kalmasham is the sin. All the effects of sins, they are washed off. How? Just by these 6 ways in which we can connect to the Lord. So we don't wash the sins, we just connect to the Lord washes our sins. So actually it's the Lord who is working for us. We are not working for the Lord. Sometimes it's debatable whether we are serving the Lord or the Lord is serving us. How eager it is. He is. And then the last line says, Tasmai Subhadra Shravase Namo Namaha. So basically, everything becomes auspicious because all the sinful effects, they are removed from our life. And Tasmai Subhadra Shravase Namo Namaha. So he's basically saying everything becomes auspicious. And unto that Supreme Lord, I offer my respectful obeisances. So it's a very wonderful way whenever we feel a bit low, whenever we feel that, I'm not getting that enthusiasm in my bhakti. I don't even know whether the Lord is even seeing me, whether I'm even, we go through these, ups and downs a little bit in our own journey, spiritual journey. So this verse is a lighthouse, or is the antidote in those times, for those times. You just read this verse, see what Shukadeva Goswami is telling us as a tip to associate with him. Remember this verse and we feel rejuvenated. So this, of course, whole Bhagavatam, you can say, rejuvenates us, but there are certain specific verses in Bhagavatam, they are major rejuvenators, and this is one of them. So 6 things, the reactions of sins gone. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he very nicely explains the process. So this is what are the 6 ways and what happens. But where do all these things start and what actually happens? how we actually connect with the Lord by these 6 ways. And what is the inner mechanism or inner engineering that happens? That is happening on a subconscious, subtle level, which you are not aware. So Prabhupada is making us aware of this. So first thing, as we understand, the whole process starts off with Shravanam, right? So the whole aspect of bhakti is centered around Shravanam. And today morning we were discussing, even before Shravanam, there are 2 steps that only Prabhupada gave us. Rupa Goswami or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us from Shravanam, but Prabhupada gave us 2 extra steps before Shravanam. And what were the 2 steps we discussed in the morning? First is Prasadam. Second is Harinam. Because a lot of people, they specifically because of this conditioned existence, they are not in that level of consciousness to actually hear. And the hearing also has to be attentive. It is not just general hearing, just like we hear radio or some loudspeaker. It has to be attentive. But because of their conditioned existence, people cannot attentively hear. So prasad, nobody says no. Everybody has the need and requirement for prasad. So we have prasad. So Prabhupada is to give prasad. As soon as somebody comes into his center or wherever he meets, he shoves in a gulab jamun in his mouth. That's it, done. Whether you like it or not, whether you asked for it or not, done. And then the Harinam, and then it comes on to Shravanam. So when there is attentive Shravanam, automatically the purification just accelerates. And when there is acceleration of us moving towards transcendence, what happens? Shravanam automatically leads one to offenseless Kirtanam. And in the purport, Prabhupada writes, Kirtan is not just the singing of the Mahamantra. Of course, that is Kirtan, no doubt. But Kirtan also means glorifying the Lord from the pages of Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. That is also Kirtanam. So Shravanam naturally leads to Kirtanam. And when there is Kirtan, whether it's the holy name or whether it's Bhagavatam, that entire atmosphere, wherever this activity is going on, becomes spiritually surcharged. We experience that, right? When we are sitting together in the association of devotees, becomes so powerful, just becomes so surcharged, I mean, we might feel a low that day for something that might have happened in our life. But as soon as we come and sit amongst the devotees and we are hearing Bhagavatam or we are hearing the holy name, after some time, all of those thoughts in our mind that were disturbing us, they just go away. And we feel completely absorbed. And that is the power of transcendence. And that's what people experience, even people who are not following the process. When they come to the temple, they have a feeling of satisfaction, of calmness from within. And that is why, because of the surcharge in the atmosphere. But this Kirtan, this Shravanam and Kirtanam, to surcharge the atmosphere has to be done under the right bona fide guidance. That is the key part. And that's why we need a guide, we need a guru, we need a mentor in each stage of our spiritual life. And if that happens, once we have the right guidance, then we do not get into any concoctions, any speculation that even our own mind might sometimes give us. And when there are no concoctions, then what happens? There are no speculations. Then there is very little chance of us knowingly or unknowingly committing sins, because we are doing things under guidance. If we do deviate a little bit, we are guided back in the right direction. So that is really keeping us on track. And so that's why once we do these 6, once we start the hearing process, it automatically leads to Kirtanam. And then all of these 6 things that as mentioned here, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Ikshanam, Vandanam, Shravanam, and Arhanam, all of these happen naturally in our lives. So as a devotee, Prabhupada was asked, have you seen Krishna? So Prabhupada replied back, can you not see Krishna? I mean, the question is not, can you see Krishna? The question is, how can you not see Krishna? Because you are constantly associating with Krishna with all these six, activities throughout the day. So all of this starts from Shravanam. And at the end of the purport, Prabhupada concludes by saying that hearing therefore is essential in order to keep oneself strictly on guard against such pitfall of sins. So hearing can actually transform people's lives. Just like we see that Prahlad Maharaj, how did he get transcendental knowledge? He got transcendental knowledge in the womb, right? How did he get that? Wireless, by hearing, correct? How did Rukmini develop the love for Krishna so much so that she actually wrote him a letter without ever seeing him to abduct her? Can you imagine the kind of madness in her love? And she's never seen this person. How did she have such an intimate connection with Krishna? Simply by hearing. Is it not? How did Arjun get transcendental knowledge? Simply by hearing. But there is one personality who heard the Bhagavad Gita just like Arjun did, but he had no effect on him. Can anybody guess that name?
Yudhishthir.
Yudhishthir.
Yudhishthir. No, sorry, Duryodhan.
Dhritarashtra.
Dhritarashtra. I said heard. So when Arjun was hearing Bhagavad Gita, Dhritarashtra was also parallelly hearing Bhagavad Gita, obviously through Sanjay. Now it was the same Bhagavad Gita spoken by the same Krishna. It completely changed Arjun's life and made him effective. The same Bhagavad Gita was narrated to Dhritarashtra. And what happened? Nothing happened. Why? Was the Gita diluted? No. He did not allow Gita to work in his life. He had shut his window. So we find that hearing is important, provided we have our windows open. Just like getting in the sunlight in the house. If you close your window and complain there is no sunlight, whose fault is it? So hearing is important, provided we allow it to happen. So like that, we have so many examples. Just by hearing, people's life have changed. And there is a wonderful Gopi Geet that talks about the same point, where gopis sing. It's a wonderful thing that Bhakti Charu Maharaj used to sing. Tabo kathamritam tapta jivanam kavibhiriditam kalmashapaham shravanamangalam shrimadatam bhuvigrinanti je bhuridajana. Tava katha amrita, that your glorification, your pastimes, they are like amrit, they are like nectar. And tapta jivanam, that they actually give us satisfaction from all the suffering that we face in this world. Tapta jivanam. Kavivir iditam kalmashapaham. Again, same here, the sins. In the age of Kali, all the sins, the effects of sins, they get washed away. And Shravana Mangalam, as soon as you do Shravanam, it creates auspiciousness. Same is in this verse where it says Subhadra. Shravana Mangalam, Shrimad Atatam. Shrimad Atatam means this, it is full of spiritual potency and it is broadcast all over the world. And Bhuvi Ghinanti Je Bhurida Jana, the people who broadcast the glories all over the world, they are most munificent, they are most respectable, and they are to be worshipped. Gopis are singing like this. Such a wonderful thing. And of course, in further down this canto itself, there is another nice verse which talks about Shrinvata Shraddhaya Nityam. Grinitam cha swacheshtitam kalena nati dirghena Bhagavan Vishate Riddhi. So he says that Shrinvata Shraddhaya Nityam. So you have to Shrinva, you have to listen with Shraddha, with faith. Nityam, always. Every day, always you have to listen. And then what does it say? Shrinvata Shraddhaya Nityam Grinitam Cha Swacheshtitam. That we have to endeavor, Swacheshta. We say Cheshta. In Bengali, we say Cheshta Karo. So we have to endeavor hard to connect to Bhagavatam, to connect to Krishna, to listen. What happens? Kalena ati dirghena, very fast. Bhagavan Vishate Riddhi, the Lord will actually manifest. He's there, but he will manifest in the heart. So we see that just by hearing, we get the complete connectivity with Krishna. What to talk about all the other 5 activities that is there in this verse. So at the end of the day, we have to hear attentively, we have to hear regularly, and to ensure we are attentive and we are regular, there is a secret formula. And what is the secret formula? The secret formula is to hear in the association of devotees. That is the secret formula. And it is a practical application that we can follow in our lives as soon as we feel convinced to do so. So all of these 6 elements are important, but if we really have to start off with one, it is Shravanam, hearing of the holy name in the association of devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on what we have discussed today? Prabhu, you are on mute. Tushta Prabhu. Can we have the other videos on, please?
Yeah. This is said, first is your remembrance, audience and prayers. The hearing comes in the 4th place.
Correct. So it is not necessarily sequential. So it is not saying that you do this first, you do that first, and then you come to this stage. It is about, Sukadev Goswami is feeling very ecstatic in glorifying the Lord. So he's talking about the 6 ways in which he feels connected to the Lord. And he's offering his obeisances in that aspect. So it is not necessarily like the ladder or the stages that one leads to the other, where first is Kirtanam and then it is Shravanam, not like that, but it is a typical 6 ways that we can associate.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
All right. Any other questions? Good. Okay. In that case, we'll finish off the formal part. The program. The class is over. And now, what should we do? Karam Kanan Prabhu? Leave it open for questions in general about class as such, not necessarily the content.
Yeah. I mean, since this was meant to be sort of like a model class or just something for us to all learn from. So we're just going through things that we discussed in the past, just to break down your lecture so we can all sort of understand what are the parts of the lecture that,
Sure.
So initially you had the introduction and the summary, which we all agreed was a good way to start. And then trying to, especially for a Bhagavatam verse, to bring us into context of which part of the Bhagavatam where we are in. So you're describing about the first canto and where exactly we're in the Bhagavatam, because very often we just take a verse and we need to know what's sort of before that. So you described that. And then through the class and examples, Srila Prabhupada's examples, quoting verses from different scriptures, different pastimes, so all of those things that we can put into the lecture. And then you had that summary and sort of a catchphrase like secret formula that sort of, even if I wasn't paying attention, I'll be just, oh, what's that secret formula? So that was something nice, that catchphrase that sort of wakes everyone up, even if they weren't listening to the rest of the class, they all at least catch the last bit. So those are just breaking down the lecture. Those are a few important things that we discussed in the past and we're seeing now in a practical demonstration. So thank you, Prabhu. And then maybe we could just get devotees to
so
ask some questions. Or...
so basically I think let's break up. I mean, break in the sense you can ask any questions, or most of you are giving classes anyway, in terms of the content, the format, or the process of giving the class. Any questions that you may have, or any suggestions or feedback, most welcome to share.
Hare Krishna. What about doing the presentation while giving the classes?
Sorry, Prabhu?
What about giving the presentation slides while giving the classes?
Oh, yes, we can. I didn't have that specifically today because of the time constraint. We wanted to finish in half an hour. But yes, definitely it is a good idea to have slides. Again, we just have to be mindful. Sometimes the slides have to be in a way that it doesn't distract. So there's sometimes too much information, or one slide is kept for a long time and the person feels a bit disoriented because they've already gone through it, but they're still looking at it. So use of resource is very good, but it has to be done in a way that, that we are a bit sensitive to the audience because it's an online medium. But yeah, absolutely fine.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. Any other questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Dandavatam, Prabhuji.
Wow.
Prabhuji is always it has to start with some slokas. It is not necessarily depends on the topic.
Yeah. So I just started as a Bhagavatam class because now, of course, we are having regular Bhagavatam classes, and Nandarosh Prabhu and Kadam Kanan Prabhu, they are the coordinators. They always are looking for speakers on Srimad Bhagavatam. So I just thought I'll take one verse like this. So that's why I started with the verse. But if it is a Bhakti Vriksha or a Namahat program, then it could start off with an icebreaker, which is not really related to any particular scriptural aspect.
Yeah.
And then you can move on accordingly. So time, place, circumstances. It's fixed formula.
Generally, we do like that with icebreakers, Prabhuji.
Correct. Absolutely fine.
Thank
You're already
you.
doing that, Mataji, for a while.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. Any other questions? All good, all set, all ready. Excellent. Raring to go. It's like Arjun picked up all his weapons in this all 12, 13 years. And then he was ready to face the battle on Kurukshetra. And don't worry, nobody gets bewildered because Krishna is with us.
Yeah.
Okay, now then that's all good. We did have a few points that I'm sure is, you kind of know it, but still I just thought I'll mention. So these are the important components that should be there in the class. This is not my part, it's just what we've picked up from senior devotees. So I'll just maybe go through the important aspects, and you can just make your own notes accordingly, right? So I'd shared something with Kadam Kanan Prabhu, but that's more for just as a reference. So first thing is that we normally do without fail is Kirtan. Now, if it's a Bhakti Vriksha, it can just be a Mahamantra. Usually for a more formal class like Bhagavatam class or a Srimad or a Bhagavad Gita class, we usually always have Jai Radha Madhav. That's what Prabhupada did and he taught us. And depending on the time frame, we shouldn't go too long either sometimes. So it's better to check who is the organizer of the program, to see, first check with them, whoever has invited us to give the class, what's the audience, who's the audience. It's very important to know the audience and to understand how long have we got to present. So sometimes it's 45 minutes, sometimes it's 1 hour. So that's very important. And also to ask who is the audience. Are they initiated devotees, or they Bhakti Vriksha members, or they're new people? So you should know the audience, because the same verse can be presented in different ways based on the audience. So it's very, very, very important. And one thing is we should always, at least we should endeavor to start on time and finish on time. In online, people have very short, attention spans. Even face to face, it is small. What to talk about online when they can easily get distracted because they're at home. So if you go over time, which happens sometimes, then you just lose your audience. So that is a very, very important part. So once that is known and you know, okay, you've got so much time, then you can structure your class accordingly. So it doesn't matter which verse you're taking or what format of the program it is in terms of the presentation. You must have a very strong introduction. Even if you give the take up with the shloka, it should start off with a good introduction. Like today we had the 6 ways of associating with the Lord. So it just catches attention rather than just hopping over a shloka. And then we can use resources, as Chitta Krishna Prabhu said, no problem, just to supplement. You might even want to involve the audience and recite with you, or you might want them to read something to make it a bit interactive. That's fine, that's great. And in principle, obviously, when we are talking about a particular verse or a topic or a theme or the life of an acharya or whatever it is, needless to say, we should have very good content, meaning it has to be well researched. So if we are talking about one verse from Bhagavatam, sometimes people just focus on that one verse purport. Of course, we have to, but we should not just focus on that one verse, because we might not have enough information, enough content to fill up half an hour or 45 minutes just for that one. We are not at that level, like a pure devotee can talk for 3 hours on one word, but we are not at that level. So we need much more content. So we usually go for a Bhagavatam class, we usually go about a few verses before and a few verses after. And we also try to give an overview of that whole chapter so that you establish a context. So suddenly everybody in the audience might not be following that every day. They might just tune in today, and if you don't give them the context, then they'll just sizzle out because they can't place themselves. It'll be all over the place. So give them a good sound context that they can relate to, they can understand in a simple way. And then start the discussion. The main focus should be on Prabhupada's purport. What are the important points? If it's a long, big purport, there may be maybe 8 or 10 points. But if you don't have that kind of time, distill that into 3 or 4 important points that you feel you've got from it after reading or after hearing from your Guru Maharaj or Prabhupada or other senior devotees. So just distill important points. Then present them in a sequential way that is easy for you to communicate and for the audience to understand. And when you present them, it has to be presented in a way that it is very relevant. What is relevant for my audience? Who's my audience? That's why knowing who your audience is very important. If you talk about just the overview of Bhagavad Gita or overview of Bhagavatam or just Krishna from a very superficial level to devotees, they'll get bored because they already know it. At the same time, if you start talking about Brahma Samhita and the details of the pastimes to new devotees, they'll not understand at all. You lose them. So understanding the audience to get to understand the depth at which you need to go into is very, very important. Other important aspect is the practical application. Just like we were discussing today morning, in the material world, while doing material activities, there is pain in the beginning and there is pain in the end. But because people get some pleasure at the end as a result of that fruitive activity, they feel it's pleasure, but actually it is pain. There was some discussion around how everything is temporary, and that's why it's pain. But it doesn't really appeal to people. They don't really understand that temporary means painful. So we need to make them understand why it's painful. Like the example we gave today was the person might be applying for a big job, for a high-paying job, and might get it. And he may be happy. So how come it's painful at the end? But because he's got a high-profile job, people around him may become envious.
Yeah.
And then they might not be cooperating with him. They may create challenges, problems for him. So he may get a good job and he may feel temporarily happy for a day or two. But when he starts working, it becomes painful for him. So we are not concocting. We are just giving an example to support what scripture is making us understand. Right? So we don't assume scriptures. We take scriptures as it is, but we add things that we have heard elsewhere or that fits in with that context and present it to the audience for better understanding. So it's like a practical application. And then, of course, we summarize at the end what we have discussed in the class, because there may be so many points we touch upon in the class, but at the end we should summarize. So what is the most important thing people should remember at the end of your presentation, or you want them to remember? And once you summarize, there should be a very, very specific conclusion, what we call as call to action. So what is it that you are inspiring them to do? Because a class is not a feel good, oh, I just gave a class and people said nice, they felt nice and they went home. That is not the purpose. We are not here to make others just feel good. Of course, they feel good, but they feel inspired to do something that Prabhupada would want them to do, that Krishna would want them to do. So what is it that we are inspiring them to do? To chant or to read or to come to the program, to come to the temple? What is the call to action? Like, for example, if we are doing a class before a festival, then the logical call to action before a festival is what?
Talking about the festival.
To invite them to the temple.
Seva and seva.
Or seva. Yeah, there is some seva in the temple. Please join, whatever it may be. So there has to be a strong, just one, maybe two maximum, not more. Otherwise, people will get confused. So that, and then you conclude nicely. So this is the general format. And I also want to touch upon a few things in general. These are general pointers that you can weave throughout your presentation to make it very effective. Okay, so what are they? First is we have to be very sensitive to the audience. So we need to see. I know in an online version it's very difficult because most of the people don't put their cameras on, so you don't know whether they're even listening to you or they are just put the Zoom video on and they're doing something else. So good to notice, good to check. And depending on the movement of the people, somebody might want to discuss something, put their hands up. So just be sensitive, rather than sometimes people just look at their book and they're talking, but they miss the interaction with the audience. That is very, very important. Second is there has to be eye contact. So we need to look at, again, in online is very difficult because people really, the audience doesn't know whether you're looking at them. It's more of a live situation, but it's good to get into that habit of looking at people right across, not just one person, across the audience. Third, good to, we have all got our unique voice that Krishna has given us, but good to modulate it a little bit. So sometimes, you know what is modulation? Sometimes going a bit low, going a bit high, depending on the intensity of what you would like to say, the excitement. So just modulation is very nice. Another point is sometimes it's good to, especially if it's a slightly longish class, anything above 30 minutes is longish, is to have some interactions with the audience. So ask them open-ended questions. So what do you mean by open-ended question? What, the difference between a open-ended and a close-ended question?
Open-ended means the person talking about, I mean, the other side has got opportunity of telling what he wants to say, but in a close-ended, it is on the conclusion, yes or no.
Correct.
Both ways.
So close-ended means, have you read Bhagavatam? Have you read this verse? So the answer can only be a yes or a no, right? So that is a close-ended question, not good. But you can, the same question can be put forward in an open-ended way. How? What is it in this verse that you are inspired by? Rather than asking that, have you read this verse, right? So that is an open-ended question. So any questions you ask the audience should be always open-ended, and practice that beforehand. Okay. Another thing is when you get when somebody is responding back, like you've asked a question and they are talking back to you, we must be listening very attentively. So it is called what is called reflective listening. So we listen attentively. If required, we even clarify and say, yes, this is what you said. Yeah, that's fine. That sounds good. Or maybe if they have not really expressed fully the way you wanted, you can say, Prabhu, can you add a bit more? Or what were you wanting to say when you said this? You can ask for more clarification to have a robust discussion.
Sorry, Prabhu. Sorry to interrupt you. This is Suraj Chandra Das.
Harishna Prabhuji, Harishna.
Dandat Pranam, Prabhu. Dandat Pranam, all of you. Sorry, I'm doing. Okay. I heard about open-ended and close-ended question. Yes, close-ended is perfect. There was a bit of disturbance. So open-ended question, like, did you come across this verse before? Now, is this the open-ended, or you? Because I agree, Prabhu. That's sometimes people feel offensive a little bit if you ask close-ended questions. So how can you ask the same question in an open-ended way, in a not indirect way, but more subtle way? Can you please explain again?
So what your question would actually be? Have you read?
I mean,
have you read Srimad Bhagavatam? The same question, Prabhu.
Right. So is it an audience that like that the people have actually not read, or you're not sure they have read? Is it that kind of an audience?
I mean, this question is definitely for known audience who are already going through spiritual books. Right. That is definitely for sure. I mean, this is just an example I'm saying, but a lot of times it could be a scenario from Mahabharata.
Right.
That is, most of the people know a bit of Mahabharata or quite a bit of Mahabharata. So, so usually the questions possibly, and you can correct me, in line with the background of the audience. That's definitely sure. But open-ended question, I agree. It's a very skillful, how can I, method or procedure without not hurting, but without offending the audience. So I will appreciate even you can give some more examples of open-ended questions.
Yeah, I leave that open. It's good. So like you said, have you read Canto 1, or have you read the first chapter from Srimad Bhagavatam? It happens all the time, even with sometimes people who are reading and coming to a study class, they somehow are not able to read. So how do you ask them?
Correct.
So you can always focus on any particular aspect. Like, for example, if we are doing, say, chapter 4 of Bhagavatam, and instead of asking, okay, have you read this chapter? You can ask, okay, what is one verse or one theme in this chapter that you felt very inspired by?
Yeah.
So rather than saying, have you read, you can ask them, what is it that they felt inspired by? One verse or one theme or something in that chapter that really was very close to their heart. And
That's
that also stirs up a lot of discussion, because if you ask them close-ended questions, it's a yes or no. It doesn't stimulate discussion.
Yes.
But open-ended questions are meant for stimulation. So if you have a very short answer, then you have the ability to ask more probing questions, so that the devotee or whoever is there is opening his heart out, and that's where the sharing happens and everybody benefits.
Okay.
Yes. Good. Okay. Thank you. Perfect.
So definitely
Thank you.
that's a very, very important point, open-ended questions.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, I think basically that's pretty much it in terms of the main pointers, important aspects to keep in mind, and ensure that when we prepare, we just have covered most of those points and we prepare accordingly. There is no shortcut to preparedness. We must prepare ourselves. We must read. I'll just give you an example of my Guru Maharaj. I can't claim to come anywhere close to that. But Guru Maharaj used to say that to prepare for a 40-minute Bhagavatam class, he, at his level, reads for 3 hours just to prepare for a 40-minute class. 3 hours he reads, apart from his normal reading, like not his usual reading, that is just for the class. So, we have to prepare. There is no shortcut for non-preparation. And audience will easily make out. So if you are prepared, we will have that enthusiasm, that confidence that we need to portray to our audience. Because if we are not excited, the whole idea is we are preparing and we are excited to talk about Krishna, right? If we are not excited, you think the audience will be excited?
No.
We have to be infected with excitement, and then we just pass on the infection to the audience. That's all. And we pray to Prabhupada that please help me pass it on.
Yes.
I'm just excited, but the message is yours.
Sure.
That's it. That's all we are doing, Prabhu. Very simple. And always
Thank you.
remember one thing, again, Guru Maharaj says, always remember one thing. We are preaching for 2 reasons. Only 2 reasons. There is no third reason for preaching. And it's in that sequence. First reason is we are preaching. Why? Because we want to glorify the Lord. Because when we glorify the Lord, He's pleased. So we preach only to glorify the Lord. And because we want to glorify the Lord, the second point is a byproduct of number 1. The second point or second aspect of why we want to preach is we would like to purify our ourselves. So we glorify the Lord and we purify ourselves. So the more we preach, the more we glorify the Lord, the more we purify ourselves. That's it. Everything else is a byproduct as desired by Krishna and Prabhupada.
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. That's it from me.
Very nice, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, Kadam Karan Prabhu, you want to add something?
Thank you, Prabhu. No, Prabhu, that was perfect. So we'll meet again next week at 3 o'clock, and we have I put it down as Savitri Mataji, but today I realized her initiator name is Subhadra Mataji. Is that?
That's, I think, her Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji, my initiated name is Savitri Devi Das.
Oh, okay. All right. No, so okay. That's fine. So yeah, so we'll
Sorry
have
about
Savitri Mataji next week.
Yeah.
And then if you have any questions over the course of this week, then maybe we can discuss that next week as well.
Absolutely. So in between, of course, whoever has given the names, thank you very much. I want to thank all of you personally for putting your names forward. And any help that you need, please reach out to Kadam Kanan Prabhu or myself, and we'll be more than happy to help you in any way that we can. Let's hope everything turns out well. Now, I will be away for the next 4 weeks, so I may not be able to join in between. I'll try and join wherever I am, but I might not be able to join for the next session. Please excuse me if I'm not, but I'll try and see if I can at least join for a while, and because I'm really keen and excited to hear all of you. And at the end of the class, Kadam Kanan Prabhu will, he's got a, so what we have done is we have made an Excel sheet, and we have whatever points I've just discussed with you. We have made a little bit of a Excel sheet with those points. And at the end of the class, we will just give feedback based on those points that I've just discussed. And it will be more in terms of a scale of, say, 1 to 10, where you are currently, and then add any other comments that has come as a result of what we have observed. And the whole intent of that is, I would request all of you to take the feedback in a very constructive way, because initially it might feel, sometimes it might feel a bit, or the intent was of that you wanted to do was not that, but it was perceived in a different way, and that's a comment you've got. So don't focus on the critical side of things. Take it as a constructive feedback, because we are not here to criticize anybody. We are here to ensure that whoever is speaking becomes the best of that person. We are not comparing anybody to anybody, but we're just wanting that person to be the best that they can become and serve as an instrument in Prabhupada's mission. So whatever comments you get, please take it very positively, take it on board. The more you take the comment seriously and act on it, the more you can move ahead and please your Guru Maharaj. So it is upon you. You can feel free to not take anything and continue, or you can take the most out of the feedback and become the best of yourself and see a smile on your Guru Maharaj's face. It's for you. Okay. So on that note, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. See you all then next week. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.